Ladies and gentlemen, 2025 is here, a year brimming with opportunity, challenges, and personal growth. Today, I want to talk about something fundamental, the art of discernment, specifically knowing what not to share with others. Because in a world of oversharing, the power of selective silence is your greatest ally. We've been taught to believe that openness is strength, and it is. But unchecked vulnerability shared in the wrong way or with the wrong people can strip you of your power. So let's explore the 7 things you should think twice about sharing this year. Your deepest fears are some of the most intimate parts of who you are. They are raw, unfiltered reflections of your vulnerability, and they hold immense power not just over your emotions, but over your decisions, your actions, and even your relationships. When you feel fear, it's like a signal from within, asking you to pay attention, to explore, to understand what lies beneath. But the thing about fear is that it's fragile in its early stages. It's like a wound that hasn't healed yet. Exposing it to the world too soon can make it worse, not better. When you share your fears before you've had the chance to process them fully, you risk handing them over to people who might not treat them with the care they deserve. Not everyone is equipped to hold space for your vulnerability. Some people might dismiss your fears, telling you to get over it or stop worrying so much. Others might unintentionally feed your anxiety by amplifying the worst-case scenarios you've already imagined. And then there are those who, consciously or not, might use your fears against you, weaponizing your openness in ways you never anticipated. It's important to remember that fear, at its core, is a teacher. It's there to show you something about yourself, your values, your desires, your limits. But that lesson often requires quiet introspection. It's in the moments when you sit with your fear without judgment or distraction that you begin to understand it. Why am I afraid? What am I protecting? What story am I telling myself about this fear? And is it even true? These are questions only you can answer, and they take time. Sharing your fears prematurely interrupts that process. It shifts the focus from inner exploration to external validation, and that can be dangerous. When you look outward for reassurance, you might find comfort in the moment, but it's often fleeting. You become dependent on other people's reactions to regulate your emotions, which undermines your ability to self-soothe. The very act of sharing too soon can make your fear feel even bigger, because now it's not just yours, it's out there, exposed and vulnerable to interpretation by others. That externalization can make it harder to face your fear head on, because it adds layers of complexity. What do they think of me now? Am I being judged? Did I say too much? That's not to say you should never share your fears. Vulnerability, when done thoughtfully, is a strength. It can deepen connections and inspire others, but timing is everything. Before you share, ask yourself, am I sharing to seek understanding, or am I seeking someone else to fix this for me? Have I taken the time to sit with this fear and understand its roots, or am I handing it off because it feels too heavy? When you've processed your fear, sharing it becomes an act of empowerment, not desperation. You can say, this was hard for me, but here's what I've learned, rather than I don't know what to do, please help. In 2025, let your deepest fears be a space for self-discovery first. Honor the sacredness of your inner work before inviting anyone else into the conversation. When you do that, you'll find that your fears lose their grip over you, and you'll emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Your long-term goals are the blueprint for your dreams, the vision of the future you're striving to create. They're personal, purposeful, and deeply tied to your sense of identity and ambition. But as powerful as goals are, they're also incredibly delicate, especially in their formative stages. Sharing them too early, or without the proper boundaries in place, can leave them exposed to forces that may undermine your progress, shake your confidence, or distort your vision. When you share your long-term goals without guardrails, you open yourself up to a wide range of external opinions, expectations, and judgments. People will often project their own fears, limitations, and biases onto your aspirations. Someone might say, "That's too risky," or "Are you sure that's realistic?" Even well-meaning friends and family might ask questions that inadvertently sow seeds of doubt. While they might think they're helping you by encouraging caution, their words can create unnecessary obstacles in your mind. Suddenly, a goal that once felt exhilarating and possible might start to feel daunting or even unattainable. It's not just doubt you have to guard against. Oversharing your goals can also lead to a premature sense of accomplishment. When you talk about your aspirations in detail, your brain sometimes rewards you with the same feelings of satisfaction you'd get from actually achieving them. This phenomenon, often referred to as social reality, can diminish your drive to take concrete action. You might find yourself losing momentum, feeling like you've already made progress simply because you've shared your plans with others. The result: a dream that never leaves the realm of ideas. Another challenge of sharing goals too freely is the risk of comparison. When you reveal your aspirations to others, especially in a world dominated by social media, it's easy to start measuring your progress against theirs. Maybe someone else has a similar goal but seems to be moving faster or achieving more. That comparison can be demoralizing, leading you to question your path or feel like you're falling behind. It can also tempt you to make decisions based on external validation rather than staying true to what's meaningful for you. Guardrails in this context are boundaries you set to protect your goals during their most vulnerable phases. They might involve limiting how much detail you share, who you share with, and when you share. For example, instead of announcing your big dream to everyone, you might choose to confide in one or two trusted individuals who understand your vision and can provide constructive support. Or you might decide to keep your goal entirely private until you've made significant progress and feel confident in your ability to see it through. This doesn't mean you should isolate yourself or never share your aspirations. Collaboration, mentorship, and encouragement from others can be incredibly valuable. But sharing should come from a place of confidence and intentionality, not a need for approval or validation. Before you let someone into your vision, ask yourself, do they have the experience or perspective to support me? Will they respect my process? Do I feel safe sharing this with them? By keeping your long-term goals protected, you allow them to grow in an environment free from unnecessary interference. You give yourself the space to make mistakes, adjust your course, and build the resilience needed to achieve your dreams. When you do choose to share, your vision will be stronger, your purpose clearer, and your chances of success greater. In 2025, let your goals be a quiet force, one that gains momentum through deliberate action rather than premature exposure. Failure is an inevitable part of life, a universal experience that shapes us in ways success never could. It teaches us resilience, creativity, and the humility needed to grow. But failures, especially the private ones, are also deeply personal. They carry the weight of our vulnerability, our missteps, and our rawest emotions. While there's power in sharing lessons from failure, timing is everything. Talking about a failure before you've fully learned from it can do more harm than good, not just to your growth, but to how you see yourself and your journey. When you're in the midst of grappling with a failure, your emotions are often heightened. Disappointment, shame, frustration, or confusion might still be swirling around, clouding your judgment and distorting your perspective. In this raw state, sharing your failure with others can sometimes lead to unhelpful or even hurtful responses. Well-meaning people might rush to offer advice that feels dismissive or out of touch with your reality. Others might inadvertently reinforce your feelings of inadequacy by focusing on the failure itself, rather than the strength it takes to navigate it. There's also a risk in allowing external narratives to shape how you process your experience. When you share too soon, you open the door for others to interpret your failure in ways that might not align with your truth. Their reactions, whether it's pity, judgment, or even indifference, can create additional layers of complexity for you to unpack. Instead of focusing on what you can learn, you might find yourself caught up in how others perceive you, which can detract from the valuable introspection needed to grow. Another challenge is that failures often reveal themselves in layers. The first realization might be that something didn't go as planned, but deeper insights often come with time. Why did this happen? What role did I play? What can I do differently next time? These are questions that require patience and self-awareness to answer. Rushing to share your story before you've had the chance to uncover these lessons can freeze the narrative in its earliest, least complete form. You risk turning a moment of profound growth into a superficial anecdote, missing the deeper understanding that could transform your perspective and actions moving forward. This doesn't mean you should hide your failures or pretend they don't exist. Sharing stories of failure can be incredibly powerful and inspiring when the time is right. It allows others to see your humanity, learn from your experiences, and connect with you on a deeper level. But there's a difference between sharing from a place of strength and sharing from a place of pain. When you've taken the time to process your failure, you can articulate the insights you've gained, the resilience you've built, and the ways you've grown. You can share not just the experience of failing, but the triumph of learning and rising again. Before you share a private failure, ask yourself, am I ready to talk about this without seeking validation or sympathy? Do I understand the lessons this experience has taught me? Can I articulate those lessons in a way that adds value to others? If the answer to these questions is no, it might be worth holding back for now. Let the failure remain a private part of your journey until you're ready to share it with clarity and purpose. Failure is not the opposite of success, it's a part of it. By protecting your private failures while you're still learning from them, you honor the process of growth and ensure that when you do share, it's from a place of empowerment, not vulnerability. In 2025, let your failures be the quiet, powerful teachers they are meant to be, guiding you toward a stronger, wiser, and more authentic self. Especially those entrusted to you by others hold a special kind of weight. They are the intimate thoughts, fears, and experiences of someone else, shared with you in a moment of vulnerability. Being entrusted with such a secret is an honor. It signifies trust, respect, and a bond between you and the person confiding in you. It is a sacred responsibility, but this responsibility comes with a duty to protect those secrets, especially when they are shared at a time when the person may not be fully prepared to face the consequences of exposure. Disclosing someone else's secrets prematurely or without their permission can cause harm not just to the person who trusted you, but also to your relationship with them and your own integrity. There's something profoundly personal about the trust someone places in you when they share a secret. Often these secrets are part of their journey, emotional struggles, past regrets, or deeply held aspirations. They are shared with the hope that the person on the receiving end will not only understand, but will honor the delicate nature of the information. The weight of a secret is not simply in its content, but in the responsibility it carries. When you are given access to someone else's most private thoughts, it is not just about the facts themselves, but the person's trust in you to handle them with care and discretion. To break that trust, no matter how tempting it may seem at the moment, is to violate an unspoken agreement. There are often times when you might feel compelled to share someone else's secret, either because you're emotionally affected by it, or because you feel the need for validation or advice from others. But in those moments, it's crucial to remember that the secret was never yours to share. The temptation to ease your own discomfort or gain support from others can cloud your judgment, but it does not absolve you of the responsibility you've been given. Sharing someone else's vulnerability, particularly when they've chosen to keep it private, can not only damage their reputation, but also leave them feeling betrayed and exposed. The rupture in trust that results from such a breach can have long-lasting consequences, sometimes irreparable ones. Sharing someone else's secret without their permission can also diminish your own sense of integrity. Your word, your trustworthiness, and your character are built on the foundation of your actions, especially in moments of moral challenge. When you break that trust, you diminish the respect others have for you, not just in that instance, but in every future interaction. Being someone who can be relied upon to keep confidences is one of the most valuable qualities you can possess. Once you've violated that, regaining trust takes much longer, and sometimes it's never fully restored. There may also be situations when you feel compelled to share a secret because you believe it's in the best interest of the person involved. You might think that someone else needs to know or that the information might help them. But even with the best of intentions, crossing that line without the person's consent is still a violation of trust. It is better to encourage them to open up to others themselves, providing the support and care they need to make that decision. In doing so, you maintain their agency over their own narrative, respecting their autonomy in how and when they choose to disclose their secrets. In 2025, let us remember that the secrets entrusted to us are not ours to share. They are sacred pieces of someone else's soul, pieces they've chosen to reveal because they trust us. Keep those secrets with the utmost care and respect. The honor of being trusted with someone's vulnerability should never be taken lightly. Instead, hold it in a place of reverence, knowing that doing so not only strengthens your relationship with that person, but enhances your own sense of integrity and trustworthiness. Boundaries are the invisible lines that protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. They define who you are, what you will accept, and what you will not. Boundaries are not just about protecting yourself from others. They are also about showing yourself the respect you deserve. But in moments of weakness, when you feel vulnerable, overwhelmed, or emotionally drained, your boundaries are at their most fragile. These are the moments when it can be easy to let them slip, to ignore your limits in an attempt to please others or to avoid confrontation. But sharing your boundaries when you are not in a strong emotional place can lead to decisions you may later regret and expose you to more harm than help. When you're emotionally exhausted or feeling insecure, it's tempting to ignore your own needs. You might feel a desire to please others, to avoid rocking the boat, or to avoid facing your own discomfort by saying yes to things you should be saying no to. This is especially true when you're surrounded by people who might push your limits, whether knowingly or unknowingly. They may ask for favors, emotional support, or time that you simply don't have to give. In moments of weakness, your usual resistance might fade, and you may share or do things that violate your own boundaries just to get through the moment. But this only leads to a deeper sense of resentment, burnout, and self-doubt. Sharing your boundaries in a moment of weakness can also lead to overexposure. When you are feeling vulnerable, you might share things with others that you wouldn't have if you were in a clearer state of mind. You might offer more of yourself emotionally than you feel comfortable with, or you might express your limits in a way that is unclear or inconsiderate of your own well-being. It's in these moments when you might blurt out, "I'm fine," when you're not, or agree to a commitment you don't really have the energy to fulfill. And once those boundaries are crossed, it becomes difficult to reclaim them. You've put yourself in a position where you have to either compromise your needs or face potential guilt or discomfort by retracting what you said. When you're at your lowest, it's also difficult to maintain perspective. You may not have the clarity to realize that certain relationships or situations demand a firmer stance. You might justify actions that, under different circumstances, you would never allow. But boundaries are not meant to be flexible in the moments when you are at your weakest. They are there to provide protection and support, especially during those times. Sharing them when you're not in a strong place only sets you up for more emotional strain and confusion. In these vulnerable times, it's essential to give yourself permission to pause before making decisions about your boundaries. Instead of acting out of obligation, fear, or a need for external validation, take a step back. Reflect on what you truly need and how you want to honor yourself. It's okay to say, I need some time to think about this, or I'm not in a place to make that decision right now. Your boundaries need space to breathe and solidify, not to be rushed or blurred in moments of weakness. It's better to let your silence speak for you than to offer up a response you aren't ready to stand behind. Reclaiming your boundaries is a lifelong practice, one that requires constant self-awareness and self-compassion. You don't need to share your boundaries with others in the heat of the moment when you are feeling emotionally depleted. Instead, honor them quietly in the way you protect your own heart and energy. When you are in a stronger, more balanced state, you will be able to assert them more clearly and confidently. But in those moments of vulnerability, give yourself permission to hold your boundaries close, protecting them until you are in a place where you can share them in a way that aligns with your well-being. Your peace, clarity, and emotional health will thank you for it. Relationships are one of the most rewarding and challenging aspects of life. They bring us joy, connection, and a sense of belonging, but they also require effort, patience, and sometimes confrontation. Conflict is an inevitable part of any relationship, whether it's with a romantic partner, a friend, a family member, or a colleague. But how we navigate those moments of disagreement or distress is what defines the health of the relationship. It's easy to feel compelled to talk about our relationship troubles when emotions are running high, but doing so without thought or care can lead to misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and damage that's difficult to repair. In the heat of the moment, when you're feeling upset, hurt, or angry, it's only natural to want to express yourself. You want to be heard, to feel understood, and to clear the air. The problem is that during active conflict, our emotions are usually at their most intense. We're less likely to think clearly, less likely to listen effectively, and more likely to respond in ways that are defensive, hurtful, or irrational. Sharing your relationship troubles with others during these moments is tempting because it feels like an immediate release of tension, but doing so is a mistake. It's too easy to misrepresent what's happening, or to focus on only the most negative aspects, which can give others a skewed or incomplete picture of the situation. When you share your problems while they are still raw, there's a risk of inviting outsiders into something that's deeply personal and complex. Your friends, family, or colleagues might offer their advice or judgments, but their perspective is not the same as yours. They're not living through the situation firsthand, and their emotions are not as connected to it. In many cases, they may not understand the nuances of what's going on, and their reactions can complicate things even further. Instead of offering support, they might provide unsolicited advice, assumptions, or even judgments that unintentionally exacerbate the problem. It's also important to consider how your words might affect others, particularly the person you're in conflict with. Speaking about your troubles openly and freely can put strain on relationships, not just between you and the person you're currently having problems with, but also between you and those you've chosen to confide in. People may start to form their opinions, or they might side with you in a way that creates a sense of us versus them. This dynamic can lead to more hurt feelings, damage to your existing relationships, or even further complications in the original conflict. When we're hurting, we want reassurance from someone outside of the conflict, someone who isn't directly involved. But the truth is that the person you are in conflict with is often best positioned to resolve it, assuming both parties are willing to work through the issues. In moments of active conflict, it's crucial to prioritize communication with that person directly rather than turning to others for solace or validation. By speaking to people who are not directly involved, you run the risk of having your story distorted or your intentions misunderstood. When sharing, your words may be interpreted differently, and the focus can shift away from constructive resolution. On the other hand, having someone to talk to who is neutral and can listen without judgment can be helpful, but that person should ideally only be someone who can maintain that sense of detachment and objectivity. Sometimes a trusted friend or mentor can be useful in helping you process your feelings in a way that's constructive rather than reactive. They can help you identify the underlying issues and guide you in finding solutions without becoming part of the conflict themselves. It's important to handle these discussions carefully with an eye towards preserving the dignity and respect of everyone involved. Sharing in the midst of an active conflict should be done sparingly and with caution. Instead, give yourself time to process your emotions, seek clarity, and understand the true nature of the problem. Only when you've reached a more stable place should you consider confiding in others or bringing up the situation with the person you're in conflict with. The goal is not just to resolve the current disagreement, but to preserve relationships and foster understanding in the long term. In 2025, let's remember that the way we handle conflict, especially by choosing who we talk to and when, is key to navigating our relationships effectively. Financial struggles are one of the most stressful and challenging experiences anyone can face. They can leave you feeling overwhelmed, anxious, and uncertain about the future. In moments when money is tight, the instinct is often to talk about it, to share your worries and fears with others. It's tempting to voice your concerns, to seek advice or empathy, or to unload the burden you're carrying. However, talking about financial struggles without having a solution or a clear plan in place can be detrimental in several ways. While it's important to seek support and advice, doing so prematurely can lead to emotional exhaustion, confusion, and further distress. When you're deep in the throes of financial difficulty, it's easy to get caught up in the emotions of it all. You might feel helpless, frustrated, or even embarrassed about your situation. It's understandable to want to share those feelings with others, but without a clear solution in mind, you risk focusing more on the problem than on the potential solutions. Venting about your financial struggles can offer temporary relief, but it often leaves you and those around you feeling powerless. It's not uncommon to turn to friends or family for advice, but when you're still in the midst of your struggles and haven't yet identified a concrete path forward, all you may receive in return is sympathy, concern, or opinions that may not be helpful. The cycle of discussing the problem without action can lead to feelings of despair rather than empowerment. Another potential consequence of talking about financial struggles without a solution is that you risk reinforcing a negative narrative about yourself. When you share your troubles without having a plan, the focus tends to stay on the hardship rather than on how you're working to overcome it. Over time, this can affect your self-esteem and confidence, making you feel like a victim of your circumstances. The more you talk about your struggles without having a plan, the more you may internalize that narrative, losing sight of your ability to take control and make positive changes. Oversharing your financial troubles can unintentionally strain relationships. Money is a sensitive topic, and when you talk about your struggles with people who are not directly involved in your financial situation, it can create discomfort or even resentment. Those around you may feel awkward, unable to provide meaningful help, or may begin to offer unsolicited advice that doesn't feel relevant to your situation. Even with the best intentions, friends and family may not be equipped to offer practical solutions or may unknowingly create more pressure by offering their own perspectives. You may also face judgment, or worse, some people may start to distance themselves, not knowing how to respond. There's also the risk of comparing your financial struggles to others, especially in a world where people often portray their lives as perfect or financially stable. Social media, for instance, can make you feel like everyone around you is thriving while you're falling behind. This can lead to feelings of inadequacy, embarrassment, or shame, and can prevent you from focusing on practical steps you can take to resolve your financial issues. It's crucial to remember that everyone faces financial challenges at some point, and that comparison often does more harm than good. The key to navigating financial struggles effectively is to develop a plan. Without a solution in place, you're left with only the problem, and that can feel suffocating. However, once you start taking actionable steps, whether that's creating a budget, seeking financial advice, cutting unnecessary expenses, or exploring additional sources of income, you gain a sense of control. Once you have a plan, sharing your struggles becomes more productive. Instead of simply venting, you can talk about the steps you're taking to improve the situation, which shifts the conversation toward empowerment and solutions. Talking about your financial troubles is not inherently bad. It's important to seek support, advice, and empathy. But before you share, it's critical to first develop a clear course of action. When you have a solution or a strategy in place, you're not just talking about the problem, you're discussing the steps you're taking to fix it. This not only helps you regain a sense of agency and control over your financial future, but also opens the door for more constructive, solution-focused conversations with others. In 2025, let's remember that while sharing our struggles can provide emotional support, it's the focus on solutions that ultimately leads to change.